Hi, I'm David Epstein, and this is Dynamic Products of Ranks. I became interested in products of ranks through watching professional climbing competitions. Climbing has historically developed in three different disciplines, roughly corresponding to the three terms of the Olympic motto, faster, higher, and stronger. But in the plans for the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, it was proposed as a single event combining all three disciplines, and so they needed to find a way to take the scores from each of the three disciplines and combine them into a single ranking that would determine the overall winner. The way they chose to do this was to use the product of ranks within each discipline. In this example score sheet from the 2020 Pan Am Games in Los Angeles, the Canadian climber Alana Yip has a speed ranking of 5. She was 5th in the speed event, 1st in the boulder event, and 3rd in the lead climbing event. So her overall product of ranks is 5 times 1 times 3, 15, giving her the winning position in the Pan Am Games and a ticket to the Tokyo Olympics. The problem of combining scores or rankings happens frequently in many other contexts. For instance, in elections, we need to combine the preferences of many voters to determine a single winner. This problem is known as rank aggregation, and it has many other solutions. However, none of these solutions is perfect. Kenneth Arrow proved that there's no method for rank aggregation that can simultaneously guarantee three very natural-seeming properties. We should have no dictatorship. In terms of the sports ranking application, what that basically means is that we should not use the outcome of one single sports event to choose the winner of the overall competition, ignoring what happens in the other two events. The result should be Pareto efficient, and that more or less means that if one competitor outperforms another in all the events, then they should get a better overall outcome. And finally, no method can guarantee those two properties and independence of irrelevant alternatives. What that means is that the relative ranking of any two competitors depends only on how they perform against each other, and not on what any of their other competitors do. That third property is the one that's not true of rank product. But despite its flaws, the product of ranks is the method of rank aggregation that was chosen in these climbing competitions for some good reasons. It allows scores to be combined in a meaningful way even when they have unrelated units. The units by which we measure competitors in the speed, lead, and bouldering competitions are completely unrelated to each other, and using the product of ranks avoids the need for arbitrary conversion factors that would allow them to be added together. The product of ranks is equivalent to a more mathematically familiar way of combining ranks, the geometric mean. But because it avoids computing roots, its calculation is simpler and perhaps more understandable to a wide audience. And finally, compared to other methods such as adding rather than multiplying ranks, the product of ranks places a much greater focus on the small ranks. The difference between first and second place in the product of ranks is enormous. The difference between seventh and eighth place is much smaller. And that's probably what you want for the outcome of a sporting event. There are many other applications of rank aggregation in which people have used the product of ranks. These applications include analyzing gene microarray data to determine how strongly genes are regulated. They include comparing the research productivity of economists along multiple scales, such as publication and citation counts, and they also include image recognition and spam filtering. So the question we should be asking as algorithms researchers is, just how hard is it to compute this kind of rank aggregation? Well, if the data is unchanging, if we have the results of the competition completed, then it's actually very easy. Because all we need to do is to sort the data to find the ranks of all the competitors in each event, and then multiply. Both of those are standard, easy operations with well-known complexity. The problem that I'm going to be looking at is trickier because the data is dynamic. I want to understand what's happening while the competition is ongoing. How does a new score from a new competitor affect the outcome? Can we predict the score that a competitor will need to make in order to win? In this application, the data can change by updating one of the scores of one of the competitors or by adding a new competitor to the field. We may also consider eliminating competitors who perform poorly and determining how that affects the remaining field. Every time we make a change like this to the scores of a single competitor, it may in turn cause changes to the ranks of many of the other competitors and to the ordering of their products of ranks. So as the data is changing in these ways, we'd like to keep track of the product of ranks, of the competitor with the smallest product of ranks, or of the competitor with the largest product of ranks. In other words, who's winning the competition right now, or who's the likeliest to be eliminated. Before I give you the details of our methods, let me just tell you the main result. We can maintain a collection of dynamic objects with two numeric values associated with them, which you can think of as the two coordinates of points in the Euclidean plane. Given those two numeric values, we can find the minimum or maximum product of the ranks, according to those two values, for this set of dynamic objects in roughly square root of n time per update. So in the example shown, we have 7 points. Their x-coordinate rankings, y-coordinate rankings, and products are shown here. The green point is the one with the minimum product of ranks, and the red point is the one with the maximum product of ranks. So we can find either of these 2 points as the point set is updated, for instance by adding this blue point. And the rankings change. The addition of that blue point, even though it wasn't either the minimum or maximum product of ranks, it was somewhere in the middle, caused all the other ranks to change, and now both the minimum and maximum product of ranks are at different points than they were before. It's this information that our data structure can maintain. Now for the application to climbing competitions, what we would like to be able to handle is 3-dimensional data, dynamic objects with 3 associated numeric values, and we can do that. The same idea that I'm going to describe will work, but it will give you a data structure whose update time is very close to linear, so we have not worked out the details. There are 2 key ideas to our data structure, and the first of them is to maintain a partition of the points into the rectangular blocks shown in this image. The points within any one of these rectangles all have ranks within roughly square root of n of each other in both dimensions. We can maintain this partition by applying ideas based on B-trees separately in each dimension. Every time we update the point set, the partition will change for the blocks within a constant number of rows and columns of the partition, but these blocks together have only roughly square root of n points in them, so rebuilding their part of the partition is fast. This structure allows us to seek the point with the smallest product of ranks in a small subset of blocks, the ones on the lower left frontier of the subset of non-empty blocks. Similarly, the point with the largest product of ranks is on the upper right frontier. These frontiers may contain linearly many points, but they have only roughly square root of n blocks in them. So if we can query each block quickly, then we can find the winner and loser of the competition quickly. It remains to describe how we will represent a single block of our partition into blocks. Remember that each update will cause a small number of blocks to be rebuilt, but the remaining blocks don't change, even though the update can affect the ranks of the points within them. If a block is outside the updated region, then the effect of an update is to shift the ranks of all of its points in the same way by adding 1 to them or subtracting 1 from them, depending on where the updated point is relative to the block. So after a sequence of updates, the ranks of the points within a block will have shifted by some vector. And what we need to do is handle queries that ask for this given shift vector, which of the points within this block has the minimum or maximum product of ranks. We can handle that kind of query by a diagram that resembles a Voronoi diagram. It partitions the possible shift vectors, which are themselves 2-dimensional points in a plane, into regions within which the answer to the query is one of the given points. And this diagram turns out to look a lot like a classical Voronoi diagram. Its cells are convex polygons, separated by lines that bisect pairs of the given points. If we plot the points by their ranks rather than by their values, then the bisector of any 2 points is just a diagonal line through the corners of their bounding box. And so using this Voronoi diagram structure, we can answer queries that ask what is the minimum or maximum product of ranks among the points of a single block in logarithmic time. The time to construct or rebuild a diagram like this would normally be O of n log n, but we can speed that up to linear for our dynamic structure by keeping track of the sorted ordering of the points by their coordinates. So putting these 2 ideas together, using a partition of the input into blocks by their x-coordinates and y-coordinates, and then representing each individual block by something resembling a Voronoi diagram, we achieve roughly square root of n update time for finding the minimum and maximum product of 2 ranks after each update to our set of points. This is, as far as I know, the first algorithmic study of rank product aggregation. It naturally raises a question of whether square root of n is the right time bound for this problem. But there are some other questions arising from this work as well. Another one, for instance, is if we want to eliminate one at a time the worst competitors, find the maximum product of ranks, eliminate that competitor. Find the maximum product of ranks in the remaining set, eliminate that competitor, and so on. This sequence of eliminations has a very predictable structure that maybe would allow us to perform updates quicker. Does it? What about dynamization of other rank aggregation methods? We leave these questions for future research.